Hello. We're looking somber. Happy New Year from the E-Discovery Channel. This is Tom O'Connor and Craig Ball speaking to you from the heart of the French Quarter in fabulous New Orleans. We're at the Crescent City, excuse me, cigar shop and tuberculosis clinic. As you can tell, I've been fighting with a horrible cold for several days, but that doesn't stop me from speaking and coughing intermittently and being annoying.
Or smoking cigars.
And I'll light up a cigar in a minute because that'll help undoubtedly.
I'm here as part of my anti-smoking campaign. It's not taking off here.
So Craig is moving part-time to New Orleans and has spent the holidays with us here. We thought we'd come down and enjoy a quiet afternoon on a Monday in the quarter as everybody has left post-holidays and about to try to kill the amount of time until Wednesday when Mardi Gras season starts this year. Due to an incredibly early Easter, Mardi Gras will be kicking off this Wednesday with the Fabulous 40 Fellows Parade, Streetcar Parade, and the more recent, which is, by the way, the traditional kickoff event for the opening of Mardi Gras season, and the more current Joan of Arc Parade, which will go just a block from here in front of the cathedral. All of that has nothing to do with e-discovery, but we like to waste time here.
Le bon temps, rouler.
There we go. And in deference and in great homage to our dear friend Browning, as I was recounting to Craig, we were most renowned in one of our previous incarnations for totally ignoring a guest who was sitting between us for about 20 minutes, talking about things of importance like this, until we realized, oh, the camera's from the director behind the camera is just lighting.
Could this explain the paucity of guests?
Yeah, you'll notice there's no one between us anymore, yes.
Nothing can come between us.
That's right. So, what are we going to talk about? Are we going to talk about anything real? Well, no, we're going to talk about e-discovery, right?
No. People are kind enough to share their time with us. We're going to give them something of
That's right.
modest value.
So, since it's the beginning of the year and we've seen a number of the traditional, most important things that happened in legal technology in 2015, with all deference to my good friend Bob Ambrogi, who wrote a very nice top 20 list. I think that was about 19 items too long for anything of importance in the legal technology field for last year. However, I did think he got one of them right. It was number one on my charts, and that was the California Bar Association opinion regarding technical competency. Before we get to that, though, I'm going to refer to this amazing recording device. It's called Pepper?
Pepper. It's made from trees, they say.
Made from trees, yeah, I understand that. It's actually got colors in it and everything. I was able to write on it. And it seems to be portable. It's really quite astonishing.
Very energy efficient.
Has nobody heard about this? This could sweep legal technology.
You know what they say, the future is here already. It's just not evenly distributed.
That's right. That's right. It's over 4 or 5 pages. What I have here is a printout, and you and I had already discussed this, about the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court's annual report to whoever wants to bother to read it, apparently.
Oh, it was a fascinating thing. Now, in fairness,
all right,
it begins explaining something on the minds of all of us, something very topical to lawyers. It talks extensively about the practice of dueling to settle their disputes.
It's amazing. I actually circled that exact reference and how he talked about in the good old days, people used to duel versus the current way of solving disputes, which is antagonistic, this is a quote, antagonistic tactics, wasteful procedural maneuvers, and teetering brinksmanship. That makes me long to bring back dueling pistols.
Absolutely. Well, actually, it's interesting. The court is considering bringing it back, but only for plaintiffs' lawyers to settle their fee disputes among themselves.
Very good. I think some e-discovery settlements or discussions could really, really benefit from a good duel. 30 paces in front of the federal courthouse with flintlocks, right? And we could
people I might like to volunteer for that.
Yeah, and we could cover the whole Second Amendment discussion. It's interesting, the picture that they have here has a picture of the CJ, and standing right behind him
There's a camera, you can share it.
Standing right behind him is Justice Scalia, who just coincidentally happened to be here in New Orleans.
Mr. Wonderful, we call him.
Speaking on Saturday on his latest leg of his WWGWD tour. That's what would George Washington do if faced with a legal dilemma.
I'm sure that's not George Wallace.
Yeah. Oh no, wrong century.
Sorry.
It has to be at least 200 years ago for it to be precedential and binding, apparently, in Justice Scalia's viewpoint.
It's like half our viewers don't know who George Wallace is anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering about Washington, but he did speak on religious, not freedom as much as the interpretation of the Establishment Clause, and of course was decrying the lack of understanding of his co-brethren on the bench about why we are in fact a Christian nation.
Yeah,
Apparently,
standing on the street decrying Stella, Stella.
Well, apparently, I just happened to look up a couple of notes here. He didn't catch the part of the American history class. I didn't even know where he went to undergrad. Do you? Where he went to college?
No, we didn't hang around a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Benjamin Franklin, Christianity is unintelligible. Thomas Jefferson, Unitarian who was opposed to any established religion. Thomas Paine, atheist. James Madison, freedom accrues from a multiplicity of sects and the suppression of any religious sect.
Oh, sex. Never mind.
Yes,
I was interested there for a minute.
Yeah. James Monroe, deist. I'm just kind of saying before he starts talking about.
We're talking about Scalia now, right?
Yes.
Or Scalia, as we might be more appropriate.
That was Craig that said that. I myself, Your Honor.
Yes. Well, if you're a lizard, you should be called Scalia. Not that he is.
Oh.
No, if you were. Can we talk a little bit about e-discovery and
Well, I just thought it was interesting that.
You mentioned John Roberts.
Yes.
What's he been up to this New Year's?
Well, in his annual, it's not even an address, it's just a written report that they release, as I understand it, right?
Well, in my mind, he's speaking it live.
In your mind, you're seeing him speaking? All right.
He's wearing a cute little hat.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's the Pope, I think, that you're thinking about there, Craig.
He might have.
Unfortunately, according to this report, the annual reports from the CJ are New Year's ritual, typically low-key, rarely controversial, and not delivered in person, but through the court's public information office. Now, maybe the guy who delivered it is the guy on a telephone.
You're the guy who picked this as the topic, man. Don't run it down.
Well, I was disappointed because when I first read it, I thought perhaps he had given an interview, which would indicate to me that the topic of cooperation, which is what he was addressing, and specifically the new federal rules and how he hoped that they would lead to less brinksmanship and through judicial intervention, some more speedy handling of matters, which goes right to the heart of the change to Federal Rule 1, which I thought was interesting. And it just occurred to me that had he read that and was picking up on that, or was it just a tone of what he was talking about? So I was somewhat disappointed that it was just a written report.
I thought it was a nice report.
But
I read the report.
Yes.
Instead of reading just the report of the report.
Just the Cliff Notes is what you were going to say?
Yes. You get a lot out of Cliff Notes.
You say Cliff Notes, I say newspaper.
Right, exactly. So I read the report, and it's a very short and pithy report. It's full of pith. And the thing about it was interesting, not that he just talks at both the beginning of the report and the end of the report about the importance of dueling in American history.
Yes.
and how America's, here we are in New Orleans, how America's distaste for blood as a consequence of the Civil War meant that dueling was outlawed in most places. In fact, here's an interesting little tidbit he shared. If you are being sworn in as a lawyer in Kentucky, and to our Kentucky listeners, you'll know this already, both of you, you had to take an oath when you took bar to become a lawyer. You had to take an oath that you would not and had not engaged in a duel.
Whoa, I didn't know that. Interesting.
And Kentucky right up there at the cutting edge at all times. No, we love you, Kentucky. You make bourbon down there, right? Whiskey.
So I've heard.
It's a good one.
Yes, well, up there.
But anyway, I was making a point somewhere along the Anyway, John Roberts,
I was hoping
after he talked about dueling, he talked about the changes in the federal rules, the amendments, which of course no one in e-discovery CLE has mentioned to this point. We're breaking new ground here. But it was interesting, as you point out, Tom, that he chose to focus on this as his annual message, which is, I think, a very strong indication. I think one of two things. Either he thinks it's important, which is a possibility, because as a Supreme Court justice, he tries a lot of cases now, or he realizes that nothing happened in 2015 with regard to the federal judiciary. And this is the best he could come up with. Hey, we added to this new Rule 1 the fact that it applies to all of us, because we all doubted that beforehand.
I'm sensing an undertone of cynicism here.
No, it's like the golden rule, Tom. I mean, there needs to be a move before. Think about it. Right now we say, do unto others as you would like them
before
to
they do unto you.
Right. Now we need to change it in federal style to do unto others as you would like them to do unto you, and they should do unto you as you do unto them. Because that extra language is clarifying, right? Bilateral approach of this do untos. And that's what Rule 1 says. It says that the parties have to do unto others as well.
As they would be done unto.
As they would be undone.
Or they will be undone. Now, I take your point from a grammatical sense that they're just perhaps being redundant in stating something that existed clearly by inference in the rules. Unfortunately, we are a literal group of people, and I've heard, okay, I was going to say several, but I've heard one judge say, Judge Schaffer from Colorado, indicate that he thought that it was a significant change in the wording that he intended to use to impose duties on the lawyers, especially the speedy and inexpensive part of Federal Rule 1. Are we that literal that unless it's specifically said this applies to you guys, nobody's going to deal with it?
You're absolutely right, Judge Schaefer's right. The federal rules are, in fact, just a game of Simon Says. And if we don't say Simon Says at the end, nobody has to apply it to them. No, but I'm not cynical about this. A lot of good things did come out of the rules. There were some good things. And Judge Roberts did highlight other things. He highlighted the ascendancy of proportionality. But I think the most important thing he talked about, and I think the most important takeaway, the true purpose of the amendments to the new rules is not just making the parties become a bit more focused about e-discovery and more sensible. That's there, but that's in every set of rules, is be more sensible. It was the critical importance of the federal judiciary getting more involved early, more hands-on. He even made noted that just a well-placed scowl by a federal judge may be sufficient to get people to be a bit more efficient. And I think that's an important takeaway. It's interesting because if you read the last part of the report, the most newsworthy part to me was something that goes hand in hand with this need of judges to be more involved in the day-to-day management of cases, and that is that civil filings have fallen nationally by 6%. 6%.
And we know the trials have already dropped off the table.
There, 99% of the cases don't go to trial.
Right.
But we've also had a drop in diversity filings, which is most of the personal injury and tort filings. What do you guess that was, Tom?
The drop off?
Yeah. How much have we dropped off in 1 year, 2015?
And what was the overall drop?
Overall, the overall drop for all was 6%, and this is for diversity.
10.
14%.
Oh.
Now think about it. If this were Wall Street and Apple or Microsoft or Amazon or there are other stores now, Walmart, if they had come out with a 14% drop in business, I mean, it would have been bloodletting, right? It would have been the end of the world as we know it on Wall Street. But the federal court has seen a 14% drop in revenues, as it were, new business, as it were, in 1 year.
Do you think that that's a sign more of dissatisfaction with using the federal courts, that those cases are going to state courts? Or do you think that there's been actually less litigation?
Oh, I think it's several factors. I think compulsory arbitration has played a huge role.
Right.
So many companies have been putting compulsory arbitration clauses in for a number of years now, and the courts, including the United States Supreme Court, have become more inclined to uphold compulsory arbitration, even in contracts that are essentially contracts of adhesion, contracts in which people have no choice to enter. So I think that's certainly cleared the decks. The perception that federal court is very rules-based and they have all these persnickety Simon Says rules, and that you have to be better prepared in federal court. Nobody wants to be better prepared. Personally, federal court is now my go-to place. I would much rather be in federal court. Maybe it's just the years I've focused on the federal rules, but it's also how well I've gotten to know the federal judges, not one-to-one that I'd like to be in front of anybody, but just overall. I think the caliber of the
tone of the
federal
bench, yeah,
is great. And they're really more open to having you say, we need to get in front of you now, we need to have this resolved now,
right,
than the perception is. Most people think they live in an ivory tower, and they use the decorum of the courtroom, where, you know, there's like a whole bunch of clerks before the bench often.
Right.
You can't even get near the judge for a sidebar. So I think that this perception that judges, federal judges, are removed from the practice, and I think that's what the court was saying. That's what Justice Roberts was saying.
Which is certainly not our experience with the judges we come across, at least in the e-discovery space.
Terribly accessible.
Incredibly accessible.
Wanting to get involved. They always say to you, you know,
want to have a dialogue.
Bring it to me, bring it to me, you know? It's like, we've got all the support, and let's face it, this is what it means. If your workload has dropped by 14% year after year,
wow,
you know, you have the space, the time to get more involved on these cases. And I think that's what the court is saying.
Okay.
You know, Justice Roberts is saying, look, these rules, which he called an outgrowth of the Duke Conference in 2010.
Which you may recall, you were there when Judge Paul Brehm was asked what it was like being at the Duke Conference.
No, what did he say?
He replied that it was very much like Woodstock, without the sex or the drugs or the music.
Just the mud.
An interesting comment on what was happening there. Yes. He said that at the ACEDS conference last year.
Yes. Yeah. You and I were both at Woodstock, weren't we, Tom?
Oh, of course.
Of course. I remember it well.
I actually turned down.
I was like 4.
I turned down an opportunity to go. Much like my prescience in looking at the screen on the Weather Channel a month before Hurricane Katrina hit, I grew up, of course, in upstate Vermont, not far from that general vicinity, and thought 1 million kids in cars.
Was this 67, 68, something like that?
69. I want to say it was the summer of 69.
Yeah,
yes.
I was 12.
Yeah, I was
in sex, drugs, and rock and roll at 12.
I just thought to myself, 500,000, 750,000 kids in cars on a 2-lane highway in upstate New York in the middle of the rainy season. What could go wrong?
Getting back to e-discovery. So
is that what we're talking about here?
We seem to be covering a wide swath of useful topics.
We're swashbuckling our way through New Orleans. Well, like you, I was heartened that at least this topic was in the Chief Justice's report. And that indicated to me that it was on his mind. It certainly had been brought to, I'm sure he could have talked about a number of things, and he chose to talk about this. And so it seems to me that the changes to the rules and this issue of cooperation and proportionality and moving things along is of importance to him and therefore to the judiciary in general. So
some have proposed that he chose these topics because they were the most benign topics in an election year, and that he wanted to draw as little attention to the operation of the court as possible. I am not such a pundit, but I have read that.
Oh, that's an interesting take. Especially given at the same time Justice Scalia was down here. Justice Scalia was down here speaking.
Justice Roberts is certainly, whatever else one may think about him, I find him to be a terribly politic individual.
Yes, I would agree.
He certainly needs to be running that
with the group of people he has to deal with. That's a great take on it, but still doesn't diminish the importance. So. How's that for a smooth segue?
You're in a cigar store. Why don't you show them your cigar, just so you know everyone knows you're taking good care of it.
Say the word and down comes the bird. George, what's our next topic for the audience?
Say goodnight, Gracie.
I wanted to briefly talk about and we've mentioned it before in several of our discussions, the California Bar Association opinion on technical competency. And what I thought was, at least from my perspective, an organization finally set a standard. there have been a lot of attention to the change in the civil rules of many states based on the ABA model rule. I think it's 10.1 about keeping abreast of technology. There,
I said breast. I
said the magic word, and down comes the bird. That'll get everybody's attention because I said abreast. God, I love Groucho. But
I do too. Is that who you were doing?
Yeah. Thanks. I'm sorry. This discussion is now over. We're gonna go to single screen here.
This is why I'm moving. I've got a place in New Orleans. I'm not moving. I've got a place in New Orleans.
We don't do this anywhere else.
I want this all the time.
So the Bar Association, the California Bar, in their opinion, came up with 9 specific items, not a generalization of keep abreast of technology, but here's 9 things in the e-discovery space you must know how to do.
Very specific. Let's give you 9.
Do you have those handy by any chance?
I do. I'm so glad. You know, it's funny. I keep them actually. They're tattooed.
Yes,
they're tattooed on my arm. That's how I get kind of fit in here in New Orleans. I had a tat here on my arm. Yes. Number 9, in the vein of Tom telling you how specific they are. Number 9 is produce responsive ESI in a recognized and appropriate manner. Well, that certainly says it all.
There you go.
Yes, as long as you do it right, you'll be right.
You're okay. Just do it right.
No, here's the thing about this. It is a step forward. It is at least 9 things they say you should know. These 9 things. It's like, you know, learning to drive a car. At least they tell you.
This is the wheel.
Right, yeah.
This is the shift. Yeah.
And you know, mind you, I think that as positive a move as it is, they really do need to be broken down into a curriculum, into a core curriculum of what does it mean. So when you say perform appropriate searches, that's number 5. What does that mean? What is an appropriate search? Well, obviously the one that has the highest precision and the highest recall.
Oh, no.
I find that very helpful, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, but what is an appropriate?
Not math. Don't go to the math.
Oh, I'm sorry. But analyze and understand a client's systems. These are great aspirations, and they're better than just I ought to know some of this ESI stuff before I die, which is the current state of, you know, I think I can slip the surly bonds of this practice without ever having to learn something. Oh, please, let me make it to the end of my career without knowing anything about ESI.
Yep. No, I agree.
It's the lawyer's prayer.
Oh, I have slipped the surly bond. I used to see that at the end of the day every night on TV, I think.
Because you were staying up pretty late back then.
But you're right. Is it a great list? Perhaps not. Perhaps it is also a bit vague around the edges, but at least they tried to say, here's 9 things you need to know how to do or should know how to do. So there's a standard.
Exactly.
But as you and I discussed earlier, when talking about what on earth should we talk about in this crazy show that we do every day, you said, you know, it begs the question then, okay, now you've thrown this list out there. Here's things you need to know how to do. Are you going to teach us this? Oh, California Bar Association? Where's the educational wing of this?
Absolutely.
Luther's Manifesto taped or smacked to the door? Yes.
Set a standard, but let us not provide any meaningful curriculum. Let us not recommend any required readings, any required exercises, any tests of competency or you know, it's a great step in the right direction. But if it's to mean anything, it's going to have a level of follow-up. It's going to have to become woven into the warp and woof of legal education, both in the law school level and the continuing legal education level, as a subspecialty that must be evaluated if you're going to call yourself a trial lawyer, or a litigator, or whatever else you wish to call yourself. Bernice.
Just don't call me late for dinner, right?
That's right.
But
call me Shirley.
By putting these lists out there, don't they somewhat assume the responsibility for the education themselves?
I think if you're a bar and you set a standard, you have an obligation of helping blaze the path towards people meeting that standard. You just don't set a standard and say, I don't know how to get there. Nobody else knows how to get there. You just find your way.
And of course, bar associations have long been in the front of setting standards for practical information and enforcing those, right?
Even the forefront of it.
Yes.
No, but no, come on. In point of fact, the bars have done a pretty good job at developing good lines of education, a lot of ways. And keep in mind that many of the states, at least years ago, less so now, created curriculums for certification of a specialty in parts of the law. So
Well,
they
then,
know how to do this.
Now you're reading my mind here, which is not a terribly difficult task. But yeah, since I tend to babble out loud about the things I'm thinking about.
Mind meld.
Have not, and I don't know off the top of my head which states have specialties in which areas other than the state of Louisiana, which has one, I believe, in family law, bankruptcy, and maritime.
And Texas.
Texas does as well.
Number
Okay. So, but the point is, as you said, some bar associations do have some experience in setting standards for certification and enforcing them.
Sure.
And we're kind of waiting with bated breath to see if that's going to be the next step here. Will they take that plunge to do so for electronic? And I don't know. I haven't heard anything yay or nay.
And who's going to set the standard? Who's going to write those standards? It's one thing to have experienced trial lawyers certify trial lawyers' qualifications. It's another, experienced IP lawyers, experienced family law lawyers, real estate lawyers. Who's going to make?
I'm sure they'll have experts all over the world volunteering to come forward and set those
Find
standards.
an expert. But seriously, I don't want this set by a bunch of lawyers who want the standard to be so low that they fall within it, no matter how little they know about this stuff. This has got to have some rigor on it. If it's going to mean anything, it means you have to learn some technology. It means you have to learn more than just, wasn't there a case called, what was it, Zubalaki? Zubalaka.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to know more about this. You've got to be able to do those things. And what are those things? Assess e-discovery needs and issues. Well, what are you going to do? Ask your clients, what do you think we need to do with e-discovery? I don't know. What do you think we need to do? Well, let's toss the dice here. PDF, that's how now we know we have the form of production. Implement appropriate ESI preservation.
PDF.
Yeah.
I'm emulating the average trial
everything
attorney
to PDF.
who has one phrase that they recognize in the entire ESA world and tend to use that as the mantra. PDF.
Number 3, analyze and understand a client's ESI systems and storage. Well, let me say this. If you're going to analyze ESI systems, it helps to be able to know how to find them, know what they look like when you come across them, know how to interrogate them, know the terms of which, what are you analyzing? Volume?
So I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, it's called competence.
So what do you think? Well, no, don't let me ask you what you think is going to happen, because we don't know. I mean, it could be that the Bar Association of California is planning something and has a strategy for this. I don't know. And I literally don't know one way or the other. I haven't talked to anybody in California about that, and I would think we even have a reason to have some idea where they may be headed. What do you think should be done? Who should assume that educational responsibility?
I think when you have the kind of shortfall that we have in the lawyer's grasps of technology, I don't think you can just point the finger in one place. I think you have to start pointing the finger here. I don't mean me, I mean all of us. The old pogo line, I've seen the enemy and it is us. It's got to be the law schools. It's got to be the bar. It's got to be the commercial vendors. It's got to be the bar,
multiple sources.
Everybody. I mean, all of us have to take a joint responsibility for this, and we have to allocate the time and the resources and credit the effort. I mean, every law firm that hires new young associates should be sending them out to be trained. I mean, they're useless anyway as a first-year associate. Send them out to do good training. Teach them, teach them that what their joystick skills can be turned to e-discovery.
There have been some pilot programs.
Look at me. This is what I think of as a joystick. It's this for like 20 years.
I didn't want to.
This is me.
I was assiduously avoiding looking at you.
At least it wasn't.
Yeah. Do you think, because there have been some of these self-certification pieces to the pilot projects in several federal districts that have been exploring this.
Self-certification.
Yes, that you have to certify that you are in fact competent in these areas before you can file a motion. There's even some local rules. The case where you performed that legendary feat of ESI wizardry over in Mississippi.
About the old case, please.
I forget who that
I
judge was.
have done one or two things since then.
But I believe that judge has a local rule to that effect. I forget his name. You may recall. Young judge over in Mississippi.
Yes, Chief Young Judge. Yeah.
Chief Young Judge. Yeah. Yeah. I guess you're avoiding going on the hook by even mentioning his name with yours in the same sentence. But I guess
No,
my point is,
they were both a great magistrate and a great judge
Yeah.
in that case, and I was very
yeah,
seriously, I was very lucky to work with such fine members.
no, they've got great reputations over there. But do you think that's the future? Will the court start to institute these sort of self-certifications and hang their hat on this sort of a standard, or are we going to get something more formal, or is it just too soon to tell?
Well, I mean, we've had Rule 26G for a long time in federal court. The idea that when you sign, you are certifying certain things about what you have.
The rule that at the same conference when he discussed the Duke meeting, Judge Grimm referred to that as the yada 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 rule. 26G.
He was referring to 26 generally, and in terms of rule, wasn't it? 26.
It was down the list
B23E
Yeah.
or B23C, moving the proportionality requirement up, and he referred to the yada 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 as no one's going to read that far in a rule. If we don't put it up at the beginning, they're going to miss it.
Right.
And that's kind of, I share that analysis. Of
Yes.
this. But getting back to the issue of self-certification.
You're making me seasick now.
It's an earthquake in the sandy basin we know as New Orleans. Self-certification can be pretty bogus.
Say no more. Say no more.
Come on, who's gonna confess? Your honors, I shouldn't be here.
I'm incompetent.
Yeah, because I'm incompetent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
I know. I just had to throw it out there.
I know.
It's on the table.
I mean, at least you're saying put some skin in the game. At least have it the risk. It's like CLE. You certify that you did self-study. I'm sure everyone. I know people, lots of people who take that very seriously, who really do it, and they view it as a matter of professional ethics. I think we all know other people who just check off the I did that much self-study without really breaking
throw the
it
cassettes
down.
in the bottom drawer. Yeah.
The cassettes.
Yeah.
Tom, the cassettes.
I'll bet you.
Mr. Technology.
I'll bet you there are bar associations that still sell cassette tapes for CLE. What do you want to bet?
I'll bet a modest amount. When you see there, can we pick a state?
I'll bet you the state of California sells cassette tapes for CLEs.
Okay, I'll bet you $5 that they've discontinued sales of cassette tapes.
Deal. Okay. So reverting back to the
next one.
Yeah. Well, no, I guess maybe the point here is that it's too soon to tell. The ruling came out, the opinion came out. It set the standard. It's the new year, and this is clearly going to be a topic for development. And I think in my mind, it's will there be some sort of standardization or testing or something to have the bar be able to grade this standard, and then B, will other bars start to follow suit? Are we going to see some of the other states jump on this the way they did on the ABA model rule and say, yeah, that to me is going to be really interesting, because if we start building some momentum among the states, then it seems like some of the bigger vendors will be wanting to get into education in this space. If we see New York or Florida, Texas, Illinois.
I mean, the CLE industry hardly existed before compulsory CLE.
Right.
If you don't make lawyers do something, they're human beings, most of them, and they're not going to do it voluntarily. So we have got to make.
You channel Browning so well. It's almost like
That's a great compliment. Thank you. That's the nicest thing anybody may have ever said to me. But I mean, the real question, as we say this in the first week of January, the time for resolution and thinking about what you want 2016 to be is, what are you going to do, listener? I know that I've made it my resolution. One of the reasons I'm getting a place here is to turn away more of the earning work so that I can focus on trying to figure out what is this core curriculum and what can I contribute towards making it easier for everyone to try to do this. And I know, Tom, you labor every day to make it easier for people to understand this.
Yeah, we've kind of felt like salmon going upstream for a number of years now. I certainly know up until this past.
Except they get to spawn at the end. What's our incentive?
Yeah, right. Why are we doing this? You're right. I wish you hadn't asked that question. But yeah, it has been I might quote the Grateful Dead, it's been a long, strange trip. But now all of a sudden we seem to be, and then I guess that's why I was heartened by the Chief Justice talking about this, that now it's become at least a mainstream topic. Perhaps not at the level we would like to see it, because we've immersed ourselves in this for so long. But the fact that it is a topic by the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, by the Bar Association of one of, if not the largest state in the union, okay, the topic is no longer just a bunch of us gadflies going around being annoying, yeah, and telling people they should really know this stuff. It's become, to my mind at least, by the end of last year, it's become a serious topic that is hopefully about to be taken seriously in how we'll address it. So
serious. I'm being serious.
I'm being serious.
But being seriously, I mean,
but all seriousness aside,
that is nice that you see it that way, and I was glad to read it. And like I said, I think the other parts of this are much more startling. Keep in mind with filings dropping by respectively 6% and 14%.
Yes,
that's dramatic. That is going to change.
Bankruptcy at all?
He probably did. I'll have to go back and review it because my level of interest in bankruptcy is just right up there. But I'll admit, while you talk, I'll check that. But here's the thing: there's a possibility, and others have said so, that the Chief Justice chose the topic of amendments to the new rules because it was literally the most harmless thing that he could mention.
Plain
the least
vanilla
interesting thing. Yeah. You know, we changed Rule 1 to say this applies.
No more dueling. No flintlock muskets allowed in the courthouse. Yeah.
You know, exactly. So let me get those numbers while you.
In an extremely hostile environment, at least in terms of dialogue. And certainly with items that come in front of the Supreme Court. That's an interesting take.
Well, what more human rights can we give to corporations in 2016? That's what he should be talking about. We've allowed them to have political will. We've allowed them to have religions. I think we need to have some kind of corporeal existence, don't you think? Corporations, do I not bleed if you cut me? Oh, wait, that would make them Shylock, not Sherlock, Shylock.
We really need to stop this line of conversation.
I'm going in the wrong place there.
This is going someplace.
I'm looking
for
no
filings,
bankruptcy filings.
I was just curious if those had also dropped.
Oh, they did. They decreased 11%.
Wow.
Now, to me, that's good. When fewer people are seeking bankruptcy, that is probably a good state of the nation.
But that's a big jump. Like you said, our drop, not a jump.
Consumer petitions dropped 11%, and business petitions dropped by 12%. So that's a good one. Although it's not such a good one if you're in the bankruptcy business, you might want to be around.
In terms of social health, it seems to be a good indication. So, all right, that's interesting. Well,
it hasn't been this low since 2007, but then we know what happened in 2008.
Yeah,
that was a real bellwether.
Yeah. Well, I think we've been as sarcastic and pithy as we can. I'm calling it into pithiness right now.
You know what it meant in biology class when you'd been pithed, right?
Wasn't that when you stick a
needle at the base of the brain?
The frog's brain.
That's it, yes.
And the leg switcher.
You feel like you've been pithed? It's come honestly.
Well, a great conversation.
Would have been had, but it was the two of us.
But instead, you got stuck listening to us babble. Yeah. For those of you who are still listening,
homework. Were you going to give them homework?
No. Good Lord, no. I was just wondering if either of us were going to be making public appearance where you could listen to us babble in person. Will you be at Legal Tech New York, which is coming up at the first?
I'll be at the Regency Theater in Albany doing 2 shows. No. Where am I? I'm not planning to go to Legal Tech New York.
All right.
This year. I'm going to be in Florida in a couple of weeks doing a program for the State Bar of Florida, joined by friends Ernie the attorney, Ernie Svensson, and Adriana Linares on that topic.
Right.
And on the topic of forensic technology. So if you are in Orlando, Florida, towards the end of the month, look for the State Bar's, Florida State Bar's program.
Okay.
And I know I'm doing a program in Richmond for the University of Richmond Law School towards the end of February, and hope to see some of you there.
Next week, January 11th and 12th, I believe, I'll be at the Mississippi College School of Law in Jackson, Mississippi, helping with a program that Judge Ron Hedges is putting on. And I just actually exchanged emails with our old friend, Professor Jim Carroll up there. Great school in, if I may say, at the heart of Dixie. And a great group of people. really looking forward to that. Once again, I am heartened that we are having educational efforts in areas which we never would have thought of as bastions of e-discovery or ESI education. So kudos to Ron and to Jim Carroll for doing this for, I think this will be the third year in a row. There's been something there. You and I spoke there 2 years ago.
Wonderful experience.
Yes, great group of people, and I'm looking forward to that. So, and I will be at Legal Tech, hanging out at the pretzel stand out on the corner of Lexington Avenue or something. So you can probably find me there.
Oh, we'll be at the Gourmet Deli at
Yes.
between 6th Avenue and 53rd Street.
That's right. Hanging out with Henry Dicker, having kosher hot dogs, and solving the world's problems. So we hope to see some of you at least in person at those events, and then as further events come online as the year progresses. So thanks once again, Craig. Welcome to New Orleans.
Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to one and all. We'll see you next time in the or on the eDiscovery channel.
Thanks for listening.